Um, as you know, Germans are very precise, so 2 minutes waiting for me is a hard time to do that. So let me first at all say thank you to everybody who joined this call. We thought it could be really helpful if we give upfront for the speakers a possibility to see what other speakers are doing, that their session will be a success. It is quite often many of you are very skilled in the themes that you are present, but some of you are not doing speaking so many times. So that you make the best out of your presentation, we thought it would be good to have here upfront somebody who has done really good sessions in before. And Guus came to us and said, could we not do something to help the other presenters that they can create a really good session? And we agreed very fast, within a minute, because I had seen many presentations right now from Guus, and all these presentations were very nice, and also very when you get out of these presentations, you always have the feeling that you have additional power and so on. And therefore we said, okay, Guus can show some of his secrets for you all. And maybe you have the possibility to add some of them or take some out of these 45 minutes. And we want to do it in that way that Guus will present now the most of the time. And afterwards, after 45 minutes, well, we want to have a Q&A session if there are some sessions which we then will answer for you. So you have heard Guus is in. You see that the presentation is already there. So Guus, now it's your stage. Thank you very much once again for coming.
Okay, Frank, thanks for the introduction. I've been working a lot in Germany, so I think it's fair to say that it's 6 minutes past 4 now, divided in 2 minutes delay and 4 minutes introduction.
Okay.
That's a Dutch joke, I guess. So thank you for your time, and the idea is to share some thoughts with you about presenting. I agree with what Frank says. There's many people that have a lot of good content, ideas and stuff, but maybe not everybody's a professional presenter. Maybe not everybody does it often enough to exercise. I happen to be a professional presenter, so I'd like to share some of the things that I do. Be careful. I don't say it's the best way. I don't say it's perfect. I don't say it's the only way. But the idea is to sort of inspire, if possible, to provoke you a little bit and to give you some ideas that you could consider, like the slide says, to deliver your best presentation ever. So I prepared 10 topics. I will do it very high level, because every topic, you know, I could talk days and days per topic, but it's only 45 minutes. We'll have a Q&A, so let's say within 60 minutes we must be done. Then you will receive an email later this week. Torben is very fast often, with the recording of this session, so you can listen once again or share with colleagues. You'll get the PDF of the slides that you see, and I created a checklist document that maybe can be helpful for you as well. On the slide, you see my contact information, as well as Frank's contact information and his Directions EMEA email address that might be helpful further on. Okay, I know a lot of people that I saw on the list, but for the ones that don't know me, my name is Guus Krabbenborg, but if you call me Guus or Guus or anything in between, that's fine as well. I worked all my life in business applications, and the last 20 years was that specific in the world of Microsoft Dynamics, NAV, Business Central, and what have you. My take for the last years was delivering training to partners and to end users to do coaching and to do inspiration, as it says. But most people know that if Dutch people say inspiration, what they really mean is provocation. I'm one of the founders of QBS Group, but also started recently with something new called Dynamics and More. And I'm very busy in business transformation, digital transformation, both on the partner side and on the customer side. I happen to be a frequent presenter on Directions. So like it says in the bottom, Vienna 2019 will be my sixth edition as a presenter. So I thought maybe collect some pictures of different events. And actually that's something that I would urge you to do as well. I'm not sure if you have pictures today of yourself presenting, but if you aim to become a presenter more often, it will be helpful to ask people to make pictures. It will be helpful if there's professional photographers, as there will be in Vienna, to ask the guy, here's my card, please send me some pictures, or take the time afterwards, if there's all the pictures, to pick out a good few of them, because they will help you to promote yourself as a speaker. And it's always good in social media to have good pictures as well. So a few, let's say, logistic points. So we will record a webinar. If you have questions, and if they're not that urgent, you could either write them down in the Q&A section, or you wait until the end when we have a general Q&A. And then, the idea is that we talk about the questions that are relevant for all of us. So if you have a specific thing about, your hotel booking, or, your title of your session you want to change, I think it's much better to do that one-on-one with Frank. That's what it says. That's why you'll find his email address on the first page. So maybe to start with a relevant question, which is what makes a presentation successful? Assuming that you all want to make a success of your presentation, right? I believe that it's important to think before you start creating your presentation. I think it's important to answer a few questions before you start, thinking about your presentation. What is success? And then what is success for you? And what is success for your audience? And even one step ahead, what is your contribution to a successful Directions event, right? As you feel there's different levels in, answering the question. I would say there's a few basic questions. First and foremost, I would say, sit behind your desk, close the door, take a big coffee, switch off your phone, and think and rethink, why did you decide to become a speaker? What's the reason? Why did you do that? Do you want to do it yourself? Were you pushed by your boss? Were you asked by Frank? What's the reason? And then thinking about that, what's the goal that you have set, if you have a goal yet? If the only goal is, I want to survive the 45 minutes and hope that I don't die while presenting, might sound like a goal, but I would suggest to have a tangible goal, and if possible, to write it down on a piece of paper and make it SMART, S from specific, M from measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound, right? Try to make it as concrete as you can. What helps me a lot, maybe it's the same for you, is to start visualizing. So if I want to make a successful session for myself, but also successful for my audience, and also being a successful contributor to the event, what does success look like? What is it? What is not? Right? And then, maybe you have been presenter in Directions before, or you have been presenter anywhere else. Even if it was speaking on your honeymoon, we'll all present every now and then. What did you learn from those presentations? What do you think was good? What do you think was, poor? Maybe you paid attention to the faces of the people you talk to. That always mirrors, what they feel. Do they look enthusiastic, or did they put their fingers in their nose and start staring on their mobile? I mean, that makes a big difference. And try to think what you learned from it. And if it's your first time, why don't you look at presentations, how it looks on television, what the keynote speakers on Directions look like, or previous events, and take a piece of paper and write down what you think is good in a presentation and what you think makes a presentation bad. Maybe it sounds a bit, vague, but I think these things can be Very helpful as a starting point. The second thing I want to share here is that, there is a difference between inside out and outside in. So the question is, what's your perspective? Typically, people that know a lot, that have knowledge, that are subject matter expert, especially in the technical arena, they get trapped by talking, thinking, and acting inside out. It means that as a human being, we all believe that we're the center of the universe. I do, you do, we all do, conscious or unconscious. And we talk and argue from what we've learned, what we've seen, and everything. But the point is, your audience doesn't have the same experience, doesn't have the same observations as you have. So it's good to realize again that you're not there for yourself, right? Frank didn't invite you or didn't allow you to present for yourself. The reason, you might be surprised, the reason is that you're there to present for somebody else. So think about the difference between inside out and outside in. And basically, the idea is to put yourselves in the shoes of your audience and start thinking, what do they know? Why is it relevant for them? What would they learn? How do I talk if I want to reach out and communicate to other people, right? Can I use the same jargon? Can I use the same three-letter words? Can I use the same stuff that I'm familiar with? And do I assume that everybody understands it? Or maybe I should check that, right? And then in reverse, you could say the same questions, what's success for you, but also turn it around. What does your presentation add to the overall success of the event? And also, how can your session contribute to the success of your target group? Right? If they come back from Vienna and their spouse says, how was it? They say, wow, I had a great presentation or great takeaways from your session. That would be great. Right? So here again is outside in versus inside out. And the last point here is that I would say you can have different goals. There's people, I'm sure, that say my goal is to become a rock star in BC. I want to be an MVP. My goal is to get leads. My goal is to become famous. My goal is whatever your goal is. But I would say that your presentation and your behavior, it depends on your goal. So if you want to get leads, you probably do a different presentation if it's allowed by the direction committee, because it's not a commercial, as you know, but it will have a different presentation and different attitude than if you say, I want to become an MVP or just want to inspire people. So part one. Then we got preparation, few practical things. There is a speaker portal and you should have received a login for this speaker portal. And I thought it might be helpful. I'm not sure where you are in your preparation, but I showed you just a few pictures from this portal. So I will do 3 sessions in Vienna. So this is what my, let's say, speaker overview looks like. My speaker info on the left. So that's where my info is, my picture, my profile. Then we get the sessions, we got event information and floor plan. Event information brings you directly to the schedule on the website, so you can see where you are, what room, where you are, who you compete with in the same time slot. The floor plan is what it says, the floor plan. So if I dive into my speaker info on the left, you see something like this. In your case, probably with a different picture and hopefully with a different name. A few fields are already filled in. What's not filled in is your phone number and your LinkedIn profile. I put a red arrow there. Probably because of German laws on GDPR, DSGVO, also known in Denmark and other countries. But if one of your brings you back to your goal, if your goal is to connect with people, if your goal is to win leads, if your goal is to whatever, and you want people to reach out to you, it might be helpful to put your phone number in here, like I did. And if you want people to check on who you are, what your background is, and your credentials, then it might be helpful to put in your LinkedIn link, like I did. Then in the bottom, you see biography. So that's where you can say who you are, right? So you can read a part of me, right? Highly experienced business trainer and consultant, right? And it says what I do, what I've done. Here, it's important not to just to say what you do, but to try to make it attractive for people that read it. So what does it mean for them? What's the impact? And last but not least, you can put in a picture. Well, if you do a picture while playing Scrabble, if you put a picture of you after a night getting drunk or whatever, it makes less sense, of course, than you have a picture where you're presenting, because this is the picture that will show up in the schedule. So try to find, if you want, try to find a picture where you look nice, where you sort of smile or look seriously, and where you present. And if for all the German people in the room, I deliberately thought I'd take a shirt in red, white, and blue, because that's the Dutch colors next to orange. And that's because of the 4-2 victory with soccer last Friday. Haha. Okay, next step is you go to the session. So I said I got 3. So you see here the session scheduled with the date, start time, end time, room code, and everything on everything else. Then I go one deeper. No, that's the other side. And there it says the details. Frank, interesting is that speaker name 1, that's me, but I saw in all my 3 sessions strange names on speaker 5 and 6, people I don't know. So maybe that's something to have a look at.
Yeah, we constantly develop on this software.
Okay.
So that maybe can be the reason. But we normally try to hide it, and I think on the website and so on, we only look for 4 speakers, or we have made that ready for 4 speakers. So 5 and 6 will not be the issue. But anyhow, if
we should focus on the green name right on the right hand top, right?
Yeah. That should be the norm. But anyhow, if you see something what looks like quite unusual, please don't hesitate. Send me a mail, and I will answer it. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, this screen is where you can leave your session abstract or the synopsis. So it says, in a limited number of lines what your session is all about. Here again, it makes sense to make it outside in. You don't create the abstract for yourself because you're familiar with it, but this is where your advertising starts. This is where people start looking at. And the same is with your title. You can change the session abstract, you can put it in, you can change it later on, right? It will reflect on the website. One thing you cannot change is the title. So it says in the bottom, changing your session title can only be done by Frank. So send them an email. Again, his email address is on the first slide. Because I think it's good for you to reconsider your title. And then the last part really is where you see an overview, but on the right-hand side, you see that the committee this year tries to make life of speakers even easier, because the idea is to register the number of people coming up in your session. Mind you, Frank just this morning explained to me, that's not all the people come in the room, but it's all the people that put your session in their calendar in the app.
Yes, that is the case, and we discussed it, but we will have some problems with data protection and so on if we want to scan every attendee who is going in the session. But these who do that, who add that to the schedule, will be there. And the same is for session feedback. Everybody who gives feedback will be displayed here. The other people we do not get. Yeah.
So it gives us all an idea on how you're doing, right? So that's always interesting and important. Mind you, I have a discussion going on with the direction committee, because I said speakers spend time and money to prepare and to be in Vienna. We don't get paid, right? We're happy to get a hotel room and to get free access, but we don't get paid. So I think the payment could come from good results. So I think it's important for you as a speaker to follow this, to check the portal also after Vienna. And I've suggested to the committee to come up with a ranking, not from the first to the last, but let's say the top 20% or the top 40%, because I think it makes sense that if you did a good job, that you can learn, for instance, you're a top 20% speaker in your domain. That's, of course, something that you would like to use later on in your communication, something to be decided. We'll keep you posted. Good. Number 3, your presentation theme. I'll try to speed up a bit, otherwise we will have timing problems. I think it's important to think about your theme. Too often I see people just talking about a product. And I know there's people in the call that love products, that eat, drink, sleep, do everything with the product, that sleep in pajamas with the name of the product on it. I know. My point is that just presenting product or service can be boring, right? Besides, like think if you're an ISV, you have an add-on, all the info about your product is already on your website, I assume. So why do that again? So I think if you turn that a bit and say it's not about my product, but it's about the theme of everything you could solve with your solution, right? That could make it more attractive for people to visit your session, and if they sit in after a few slides, to stay for the rest of the 45 minutes. And then, of course, your theme could be, spiced with using real life examples. Because if you've been on places the other people haven't been, then, you're an expert, subject matter expert in that specific domain. So try to collect real life examples. There can be good examples. There can be bad examples. Maybe you can make, pictures of it. If it's, pieces in the journals, if it's, screenshots from websites or whatever it is from products, and show your expertise. And this has a lot to do, ladies and gentlemen, with the drill and the holes. I keep repeating this in all my trainings and all my workshops. Nobody is interested to buy a drill. I know the majority of all the people in the call and in your audience will have a drill at home, but if you ask them, why did you buy a drill? They will say, it is because I want holes. And if I then say, would you be interested in a drill if you could buy the holes directly in the shop? And, they start laughing. They say it's impossible. But I say, just imagine. They say, of course, I won't get a drill because I'm not interested in the drill. I'm interested in the holes. Now, the drill is your product or your service or your BC system. Nobody wakes up in the world, really nobody, and looks outside of the window and says, today is a great day to buy an ERP system or your solution or your service. They will only do that if they have a problem or if they see an opportunity. That's why you think about your theme. Please talk about the holes. What can you achieve with your solution? What can you win? What can you avoid to lose? And not so much about the product. Number 3, your target group and personas, right? So I think it's worthwhile before you start writing your presentation to think about who your target audience is. And mind you, it's too simple to say, this is for the NAVBC channel. Why? Well, because the NAVBC channel and the 2,700 people that are expected in Vienna are different persons, have different roles, have different ideas, have different mindsets, different experiences. So I think it makes sense to make loud and clear who you're focusing on and for who your session is meant, for which roles. So if you say, I got a technical presentation on the move from CAL to AL, and this is a session meant for developers and technical consultants. It doesn't say it's forbidden for a project leader to come in, but at least it makes clear to people what they can expect, right? And of course, you're familiar with that. I know, there's different messages per role or per persona. And I thought, let me give just a few examples, topics that are interesting for management, for consultants and developers. Of course.
Yep. Can I step in for one sentence?
Yeah, sure.
That's a slide before. We will tag your sessions with the people we think which is your target persons, but we are not completely sure every time. So I will send out a mail maybe beginning of next week where I say please check these tags if these are okay for you. So if these are not okay, once again, then please write me a mail after, let's say, mid of next week, so that we can take that right.
Yep.
Okay, sorry for that.
No, good point. Thanks, Frank. So, and then of course, when people enter your room, you're not sure if they are, in my example, the developers and technical consultants, because it might be a business owner or a marketing person interested. So, what I do is ask people who is in the audience. And I hope you get a lot of people. You only got 45 minutes. I'll tell you more in a bit. So you don't have time to ask each and every one to introduce themselves, as you understand. So, on the left, you see sort of, my profile, the about slide, and my next slide is, the bigger one on the right and bottom saying, so who are you? Right. And, I took this picture because it's a nice one. It doesn't mean that my audience is kids, of course, but then I say, can you tell me, please show me your hand, who is technical, who's a consultant, who is marketing, who is sales, right? Who does everything in smaller companies. So at least you get a glimpse of, the people in your room, right? Or you could say, who did already migrate their solution to AL, or who is already in the cloud, or, coming up with a few questions. I always said, who's are German, so that I know which jokes I have to make and which to avoid, right? But just a few questions that you could prepare up front to get an idea who your audience is. I tell you, everybody in the audience will like you if you do that, because it means you prepare yourself, you're respectful to your audience, and you take them seriously. Good. Then is the question, why should people visit your session? Because Frank has collected, I think, over 150 or even 200 different sessions, and there's many of them at the same time. So why, for God's sake, should people visit your session? Well, first and foremost, if there's really 2,700 people in the event, an event visitor doesn't equal a visitor in your session. I hope you all understand, right? Same if you're a sponsor. If there's 2,700 people in the event, theoretically nobody will show up in your booth. So I think it makes sense to think about creating a must-attend piece of content, right? And then we know that time is the number one enemy of every event visitor. Everyone who was before on Directions, on Extreme, on Inspire, whatever, we're running out of time. Time is everything. So what I see is that a lot of people, potential attendees, they start looking at your schedule now, or a week before, 2 weeks before, or a day before, or in the hotel room in the evening before, and they create a sort of a shortlist. They will look in the app and they say what's interesting, what's not interesting. And ladies and gentlemen, they judge by your title, your topic, and the text that Frank just talked about, right? So they can follow a path for a developer or for sales or marketing. The questions that are relevant, if you like a lot of people in your room, I'm not sure. I do like it. The more the better. What do I have to do to get a position on the shortlist of these people, and what to do if you're not on the list yet? And of course, that has a lot to do with preparation and communication. I think you can make your session more attractive by doing it in a different way, right? So 13 in a dozen doesn't make sense. Don't try to avoid boring stuff. Try to be a bit different, right? It makes sense to put in some interaction. People love to interact. They are there to find sparring partners, to compare their opinions with their peers. So questions, statements which show hands, quizzes even can help. Stand up. Can everybody stand up who does this and that? Please sit down if you don't do this and that, right? Humor, right? I won't make all the jokes about the Germans again because it could be painful, Frank, but humor is something that helps. Inspiration, let them learn. And maybe you have something business relevant they can win at the end. So that brings me to communication. So I think there's pre-event communication, there's post-event communication. So when I talk about pre-event communication, right, of course, we talk about your title, we talk about, your session abstract and the things that will be on the website and that will be in the app. But why don't you think about creating a landing page on your company's website, your own website, and include a short video, right? Put yourself in front of a nice wall or in the garden and you say, hi, my name is Guus. I hope to see you shortly in Vienna. There will be a lot of things, but one thing you cannot miss is my session because ABC, right? Hope to see you there, right? There is a special direction speaker template in your email that you could use in your email signature. You can use in social media. Frank has sent it to you recently. I'll show you an example in a minute, right? Maybe you start thinking about how to sell your message, right? You could be, sit and wait till people show up, and there might be people show up, but why not try to sell it a bit, right? Bring in some curiosity, right? The top 3 things you always wanted to know but didn't dare to ask about, right? The top 5 mistakes or whatever, right? And then use social media. So there are special directions groups on LinkedIn that you might consider to use. There are Yammer groups in the different countries, specific for Dynamics partners. And then, of course, not just for Twitter, but if you communicate, then please use #Directions EMEA. I thought I'd collect a few examples. This one is from Jörg Brown. He is the Vorstand, the CEO from German partner Javeon from Würzburg. And he was one of the first that I saw in LinkedIn that says, what he does, why he does it. And then let's meet the directions. The lower part is the part that you can use, as a template. I took a few other ones. This one is not from Directions, but from a German event extensions experts last week. And I have some text in, there's a bit more, but it says, a picture with that. And the text on the side was Guus Krabbenborg keynote speaker. Here you could say, I put some text on why you're there and why people should visit it. And you have a link to your page in the schedule of the website, right? Think about it. And then maybe if you're the first time here, then maybe in 2024 or 25, if I say correct, you could send out something like this, because I said a week ago, after all these years, it's my 6th presentation, all right? I'll do 3 sessions. And I thought it was nice to find the 6 pictures of Poznan, Mannheim, Prague, Madrid, The Hague, and the right bottom, Vienna, right? Just to think, use the hashtags, check the full schedule, right? Just to think about what you could do. That's the pre-communication event. Then I got a series of practical session tips. I know I go fast, but that's because it's high level and there's a lot of things to touch on. If you forget everything, ladies and gentlemen, about this webinar, and you only remember one thing, this is probably the most important thing to remember. Human beings, their thought speed is greater than anybody's speaking speed, even if it's Guus from the Netherlands, right? Most of us speak at a rate of about 125 words per minute, but our thoughts can process up to 500 words per minute. So it basically means that if an average attendee listens to an average speaker, the average attendee only uses 25% of their mental capacity, which also means that there's still 75% left to do something else. You see the picture in the bottom? That's your biggest enemy. Because people start grabbing their phones as soon as they believe, it's not about them, it's more about you, it's not provocative enough, then they're gone. Most of them are shy people, I think, because most of them don't have the guts to run away after 5 minutes, because then all the audience will look around and says, who's the fool leaving the room? But a lot of people leave the room mentally because they stop listening to you. So I think, this is your biggest challenge, the phone, or putting fingers in their nose and start looking at the ceiling. So I think it's good to create curiosity, and I think it's good to trigger people. Last year, I had a discussion with somebody from One Click Factory. They had a technical presentation about upgrades, but a lot of people start staring at their phones. So afterwards I said, why didn't you start with something to shock the room? Why didn't you start with curiosity? And the lady says, what do you mean, Guus? Give me an example. Well, the example, I wrote it down, could be, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will start with a question. Which part of all your existing NAV customers 100% sure will migrate to Dynamics 365 with you and not with another partner? Show me your hands. Who of you is guaranteed 100%, 80%, 60%, 0%? I'm sure then the 75% and more in their minds start thinking, and they'll be sitting, on the point of their seat. Practical tips. I already said it in the beginning. This year, the Directions Committee decided to make the slots smaller. So you're not a speaker for 60 minutes, you're a speaker for 45 minutes. And after 45 minutes, you get kicked out. Right? So that's something to think about, because it has an impact on the length of your story, the number of slides, and so on. Practical tip number 2, put yourselves in the shoes of the audience. What do you like? What do you hate? Right? Don't do what you hate. Number 3, connect with your audience. Create interaction. That's what people like. That's why they come for. Try to laugh with them, right? Number 4, especially for the technical people, keep it simple, right? The fact that you understand what you say after rehearsing and preparing everything doesn't guarantee that everybody understands it, right? Maybe not all the content should be level 400. Sometimes the content is level 4000. At the end of the day, even the technical people that understand you need the ability to explain in simple words, because they have to sell that message or that move or that transition to their boss and the boss of their boss, who are not as technical. So my suggestion is to test this. So if you prepare, you have your concept ready, why don't you ask your spouse, your kids, your neighbor, a friend, maybe somebody from outside of IT or your colleague, please sit down and can you follow it? And what's too difficult? And I think it will help not to state, not say this, the world looks like this, but before starting a slide says, what do you think the world look like? So by raising questions, you use the 75% brain capacity, that people start thinking, right? What is good? What is bad? Think about that, right? Use curiosity. So next point, find a good structure. I see a lot of presentations that is too long, right? Including mine, haha, for the ones who've been in my sessions, right? I know myself. But a lot of them, they start very extensively about themselves, how great their company is, best place to work, free parking, great coffee. The question is if that's relevant, right? So I would say, what's the session goal? Please keep that in mind. What does you want to achieve? And what are the key messages? Can you spell your key messages in 15 or 10 words? Write it down. What's the key message? And then a good structure, ladies and gentlemen, for people who are not familiar with your content, because it's the first time they hear it, to use the journal principle, right? So if you see on television or on the radio or whatever, they start with an agenda. The highlights from this journal are 1, 2, 3. Then they start talking about 1, topic 2, topic 3, and in the end they say the 3 most important topics were 1, 2, 3. So say what you're going to say it, and then say what you just said. Makes sense, right? And then, I thought about a suggested setup. Why don't you try to limit the number of slides for your intro to 10%? So if you have 20 slides, that's 2% for your intro. Then move to the situation, the challenge, the problem, whatever it is, 20%. Focus on how to solve and focus on conclusion and recommendations. I'm not sure if you want a Q&A. 45 minutes is limited. If you also take 10 minutes for Q&A, might be too short, but that's up to you. And then, we all know this, you all know what I'm going to say. Slides should be attractive. And there's 4 slides here. I would say that 3 of them are pretty attractive and 1 is pretty unattractive. And I know you know which one it is. Too much text is killing. People start reading, they don't listen to you anymore. If you need the words for yourself, then you didn't rehearse and practice your story not good enough. If you have the pictures, it's easier when you're good in the presentation to tell your story. And probably pictures, that's scientific evidence for that, people will remind pictures much easier than text, right? So think about that, please. So this is a bad slide, of course, huh? Haha. But I'm not, in a direction presentation. It's a bit of a checklist thing. Make attending your session a pleasure. If people like it, they'll tell to other people. They give you a good rate. They'll come back. They want you next year. So smile, right? Smile, right? Make eye contact. Look in the room from the left to the right. If you say something with curiosity or something, shut up. Smile. Look at them, right? Do something with your hands if you like. Non-verbal communication. Let them enjoy. They need time to think what you said. Again, you've rethought it 10, 20, 30, 100 times. They hear it for the first time. You might want to start with music. I've been doing that over the last few years. So people come in the room, they hear music, right? And not just random music, but I try to find a title that fits with my topic. So last year in The Hague, I had one on organizational change management. I started with David Bowie. Changes. Because the brains remember a song easier than just text, right? I had one from REM. The world will never be the same as before. I had one from U2, With or Without You. So think about music if you dare. Maybe you want to use a funny video. Again, not random, but let it fit with your topic. And then picture says more than words. We said that already. Talk about examples, not just the good ones. Why don't you use the bad ones, your own experience, right? People will like you if you also explain your weak point, right? That makes you a subject matter expert. But there's also weak points from other people you could steal. Provocative opinions, right? The Dutch are world champions probably in that, but it provokes reactions, right? People give me statements, right? Without a CRM system, you're bankrupt in 3 years' time. Agree, yes or no, right? That brings something. Customizations is enemy number 1 for project success, right? Things that I would like to do, I'd say. Force them to think how they can do it. And I think it's good, ladies and gentlemen, to always include what I call the Coney factor. Consequent, of not implementing, or even cost of not implementing. So if you say, if you do A, this will happen, la la la, but people think, what if I don't do it? Well, B is, if you don't do it, this could happen, or this will happen. Makes sense, right? Show two sides of the coin. And then I'm always surprised that so little presenters know who were in the session. Was the session good? Yeah, Guus, it was awesome. Do you have a lot of people? Oh yeah, I counted it, for like 100 or 200. So did you know who were in your session? Then they say, I have no idea. Would you be interested to know who's in your session? Well, here's a simple trick that I use. I offer something valuable, not valuable for me, but valuable for them, like a white paper, right? 2 pages. And this one, as an example that I used in The Hague, 8 important tips for organizational change while implementing new business software. I put a box with business cards on stage and an empty one, and I say, please give me your business card and I'll send you the copy. So exchanging content for a card will help. If you have a stand, you could say, come to my stand. If you have a landing page, but also you could say, why not invite them if they like the content? And you say, in 2 weeks' time or 2 months' time, I have a follow-up event. It could be a webinar, a workshop, or a newsletter. Again, please give me your information. I can invite you. And then I think if you're there, to get good rates and to come back and to get enthusiastic audience, the question is, do people like it? Well, you could argue that I just showed you the new tools from Frank. I will see it anyway, right? What I do is, a few slides before I'm finished, before I'm done, I showed in The Hague this one. So did you like it? So I said, please show me your hands if you liked it. There's no law that you must like it, but did you like it? A lot of people liked it. I said, the next question, who of you wants to see me back next year in Vienna? And again, a lot of hands. So I said, if you want me back, then please now take your phone. Now it's allowed. Take your fingers out of your nose. Take your phone. Please fill in the evaluation on the app, right? It could be as simple as that. My wife sometimes says, isn't that arrogant, Guus? Well, I'm not sure. I would say, effective is it? We get presentation tools. One small point about that. I see a lot of people showing content, showing systems. And I assume a lot of you will do. But if you're sitting in the back of the room, your eyes are as bad as mine, and you don't have glasses, right? You just see nothing. So there are remote controls where you can zoom, like in this one, right? And I just found, I have no idea if it's cheap or expensive or whatever it is. I don't have any shares in the company Logitech, but I thought, why not, show it to you. So for less than $100, you get a remote that you can use maybe in Vienna, but you can use in all your sessions. If you didn't do that, I saw one from CKL, a German partner, on the house messe on Vision Data, and I thought, wow, this is great. So if this is new for you, think about it. Then we get post-event communication. So event is done, right? Now what? I would say share your success. So why not create a post for the social media that is relevant for you? Most likely it will be LinkedIn. For the Germans, it's Xing and LinkedIn. Maybe you want to go Facebook, Twitter, what is it? Right? And don't say just what you said, again, about the drill, but talk about the holes. Include some feedback. Ask somebody to make a few nice pictures. I know there's photographers, but you're not sure they take pictures from you, and maybe it's not the good one, or you were coincidentally not laughing or whatever. So why don't you invite a colleague, a friend, or a neighbor or whatever, make a few pictures from you, and make a few pictures from you where you also see your audience. We mentioned already evaluation scores, and I said something about the ranking, and something else you could do is write an article for your website, put it in your newsletter, right? Evaluation. So here again, a slide that I made, a post on LinkedIn after the event summit in March this year in Amsterdam, organized by the Dynamics communities, right? So I had a few pictures on my slides, the titles, a few slides, and an overview from audiences. I think this, could help. So people say, I know, yeah, next time I should definitely visit this session. Well, I would like to invite you to think about the follow-up. And the point is, you're probably thinking about your title, make it sexy, and all the things I've just said. But why not start thinking about the follow-up before the events? Because there's a few weeks to go. You still have time now. I see too many presenters focus on the session and on the visitors, and that's it. But sometimes, your follow-up might be as important for your visitors as your session yourself. So if you think about this idea from this white paper, they might eagerly wait for your white paper or whatever it is. So if you say after the session, I'm done, right? Why don't you start preparing before? So the simplest thing you could do once you collected business cards is send a thank you for your visit email that you could create before. It's, a draft email already in your mailbox. And if you're in your hotel room to get showered for whatever party you go to, why don't you send it out? People won't expect it. They're surprised we do it that fast. Then send the documents that you've promised. Maybe think about a follow-up scenario if you think about webinar or whatever things, right? And create these linking pin events. Then we're almost there, Frank. Think about the next steps. So possible next steps is you will receive an email this week with the slides that I showed you, but also PDF with a checklist. I would say check the checklist. If you're interested, I do some speaker coaching for different partners. So if you're interested in that, then my contact info is on the first page. And then finally, last but not least, it's important to prepare and to prepare and to prepare, right? Master your content. You don't need to look at the slide. You know what the next slide is. Don't have to read your slides. Don't stand with your back to the audience, right? You can talk. The better you master your content, the more space to be relaxed, the more space to make a joke, the more space to interact with it. I thought, listening to me could be one, but there's of course all kind of other sources. So I found three, I think, relevant pieces of content. What does it take to become a recognized conference speaker? If you like it, you get the right taste and you say, I want to do this more often. Top tips for effective presentations and tips for making effective PowerPoint presentations. Please take a look, right? Don't take everything what I say for granted. There might be some overlap, but that's okay, I guess. And then I would say after 45 minutes and 4, so pretty much on schedule, Frank, to see you in Vienna. And I want to go back to you, Frank, and I'm curious to hear if there's any questions.
Yes, thank you, Guus. Was really interesting, and I'm also quite often a speaker, and but there were also some tips in for me, which I want to try by myself if this will help me. So thank you very much at first for this nice presentation, and as always, I find it very, very interesting. Now, yeah, I see it now in the message. Thank you, Guus. Thank you. Thanks. You had it done. Great as always, as I said. So,
but also any questions or?
Yeah, I want to stress one point. If you like a speaker to have a good rating, please remember the people at the end of your session at Directions that they rate. We will do it constantly. We will do it in every keynote. We will remember everybody to rate. But we had it in the past. If only 5 or 6 or 7 people are rating, mostly only the people are rating which are not satisfied with your session. So you get quite often, I've seen that sometimes before, that you get a bad rating, but your session was really good, but only the people who were not satisfied gave you a rating. So it would be great if you could encourage the people that they rate for you. Yeah, for me, it was, as Guus said, you will get this info with from the slides. You will get by mail. Mid of next week, you will get also from me a new mail with the text that you can look on that. And right now, I want to ask you again: do you have some questions right now?
Well, I could imagine, Frank, if there's no questions now, people, once they receive the PDF, they will have your email address and my email address. So yeah, maybe it's more convenient to do it one-on-one, and that's okay.
Yeah. That's not a problem.
I have a question, if I could ask.
Yes. Yeah.
Hi, my name's AJ. So Well, I've done public speaking before. It's going to be the first time I do it across the pond in Europe. So I think, Guus, you mentioned, people do think a lot faster than people speak. Still, I guess, are there any tips for somebody coming to the European side? I guess cadence is a little bit different. Colloquialisms are a little bit different with English. Any tips for the ignorant American who's coming to Europe to do some presentations?
So I think there's two things that come up in my mind. The first thing is, especially for you guys, speak slowly.
Yes.
Because a big part of the audience is not native English, right? You're in the EMEA region. And the second suggestion to the US speakers would be that most countries in Europe, no, let me say differently. Europe is not a country.
Yeah, and I have also something in mind. The European people are not that enthusiastic in reactions, which they will give you back as Americans.
So don't ask for a round of applause 5 times, right?
Yeah.
You're an idiot from the US.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So here, what I meant with my second point, if you use examples and their examples are always big and huge, then people in smaller countries will say, great for you, but I live in a small country, so I don't listen anymore. So I would suggest to, adapt your examples when possible to the size from European countries, and even better if you have European examples.
Yeah.
That would be my 2 points.
Yeah.
One quick follow-up there. What's the average attendance per session? I obviously realize it's going to vary from content to content type, maybe even the time of the day. But within Directions EMEA, typically how many people show up to sessions?
I would say it depends. If it's a theme which is really interesting, you can have up to 500-600 attendees, easy. A session which is not that, I would call it mainstream like, you always can expect more than 100 to 150 attendees. So this is, I normally do sessions which are not that interesting for people except project managers. But I had the last year every time, between 150 to nearby 200 attendees. So, and that is also what I've heard. Maybe if it's a bad spot, means very late in the evening you get only 80 or 90 or something like that. But that should it be.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question. Thank you. Coming from Directions North America, I think we typically average about 30 to 35 on sessions. I think over 50 is usually a very high turnout. Even the rooms are smaller. So thanks for that clarification.
Okay.
The only risk for having a small audience probably is on Friday morning, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's the first slot after the party evening, right? Be careful.
Yeah, that could be difficult. But as I said, the room size, the smallest rooms we have right now have a space for around 150 attendees, and the most rooms which are located are around 200 to 250 attendees. But we also have some rooms with 500-600 attendees.
Okay, other questions? That was also an answer.
Yes.
Okay, Frank.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, as I said, feel free to send me a mail. But also Guus is knowing that I do that as a volunteer, so quite often it has